Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I recently did a video comparing the original versus the new Jaclyn Hill Vault collection. I did focus on the green palette in that video. You guys seemed to enjoy it and you requested that I do the same with the purple palette, so that's what we're going to do today. The purple palette is called Bling Boss. I have the original here and the new. So if you're not familiar, there was a pressing issue or a manufacturing issue, so they had to repress or remanufacture the palettes. So we're just comparing the original to the new just to make sure that the quality has changed and that it is better and smoother and easier to blend. So I'm just going to jump right in. I don't want to kind of talk for too long. We're going to zoom in and I'm going to do one on one eye and one on the other, and we're going to see if we notice any differences. I'm going to do the same format as I did in the last video. I'm going to do the old palette on this eye and the new one on this. The only difference for this video is I am going to use the same brush. I had some comments, people saying that I should use the same brush. So I do have a kind of switch to clean, and I also have Cinema Secrets. So I'm just going to clean it, and we're going to start with a Morphe M573, just a blending brush. Going into the original palette, I'm going to start with the shade Hush Hush. Again, this is pretty much the only transition color, so we're just going to start there. So I'm just going to blend this into the crease. Okay, so I'm going to clean off my brush with this color switch from Sephora. This is a Veramona color switch, and then I'm going to move on to the other side. So jumping into the new palette, clean brush, going into Hush Hush, same brush as before, and we're just going to do the same thing. Okay, so in terms of that shade, I don't notice much difference, but it is so light, especially because I do have a tan. So I have a new brush here. This is a BH Cosmetics number 9 brush. It's in a collection, and I'm gonna go into the shade, I'm trying to think what I wanna do. I think I'm gonna go into the shade Rockstar, and I'm just gonna start building up that crease. So taking this even a little bit lower and tighter into the crease. And then also on the outer corner right here. So I didn't really notice any issues on this side, maybe a little bit dry. That's just kind of the way I feel. It's not as creamy as the original Jaclyn Hill. So we're going into the new palette, going into the same shade Rockstar. I cleaned off my brush, and we're gonna see if this one applies better. I found with these deep shades, regardless of which palette it is, you want to do a light hand and you want to build them. Now what I noticed in the green palette, which I'm noticing right now as well, is that these build. So upon first application, they don't appear as pigmented as the old palettes, but they don't grab, and they buff out, they diffuse, if that makes sense. So you might have to dip in 3 times and really build the color, but you're not going to have issues with it just sticking and not being able to blend it. They really do buff out. Whereas the first round, I did not feel that they buffed out as easily. There were some areas where you just really couldn't move the product. Okay, so I feel like this looks way darker. Wow, that was the same shade. That's interesting. But do you see how I built it up? So now I need to go back over here, I think, and add more. So let me clean off my brush and see if we can kind of even it out. That looks completely different to me. Wow, that's interesting. They almost look like different colors, but it's the same one. It's Rockstar. So I'm going into the original, and we're just going to try to build up and see if we can make this look even. This one looks more pink to me as well. That's very, very interesting. So I'm just going to apply this. Okay, I still feel like they look different and I can't quite pinpoint it. This one just looks, I don't know how to describe it, more pink, whereas this one looks more cool. So I'm going into my original brush that I used, going into the original palette. I did clean off my brush, and I'm going back into Hush Hush, and I'm going to start diffusing that top line, and I think that might bring it together, make them both look more seamless, because I feel like this is looking a little bit just harsh, so I'm just gonna go in very lightly and kind of diffuse. And going into the new palette, back into that Hush Hush again, and do the same thing on this eye. I feel like these eyes are looking so different though. That's pretty interesting. Maybe adding this color will, yeah, it's almost like softening it. That is so strange. So now that we did that, I feel like I've lost a little bit of deepness over here. So again, going back into Rockstar, clean brush, I just keep using my switch. And I'm gonna try to get a little bit of that depth back. Okay, so now I'm gonna move on. I feel like they still look different, but I don't know really what I can do other than start deepening. So I have a new brush. This is a Wayne Goss 20. I really like this brush because it's really small and I can deepen up that outer edge. So I'm actually gonna go into the shade Berry Treasure, which is that deep chocolatey maroon, but it has shimmer in it or glitter in it. And we're gonna start trying to deepen up a little bit. So I'm really gonna focus this pretty low. And then I have another clean brush, an R39 from Morphe, and I'm just going to diffuse that, and then I might add another layer and then diffuse it again. Okay, so I cleaned off both brushes, going back into the new palette, into Berry Treasure, and I'm gonna do the same thing. Okay, jumping back into the old palette with a new brush, I'm going into the shade Mystic up here, and I just want to try to deepen a little bit. Okay, I cleaned off my brush, going into the new palette, into Mystic. Deep enough. Okay, so I'm quickly going to apply some lashes off camera and then we're going to work on the lower lash line. Alright, so I popped some lashes on. I'm going to go into the original palette with a new brush. I'm actually going to try something different. I'm going to go into Ballsy. I'm going to wet my brush and sweep it on the lower lash line. So I cleaned off my brush, going into the new palette, into Ballsy, and I'm going to do the same thing. Going into the original palette with a clean brush. This is one of my favorite brushes for the lower lash line. This is R43, and I think I'm gonna go into, we might as well just go for it. I'm gonna go into Gem. Okay, clean my brush off, going into the new palette, and I'm gonna go back into Gem. For my inner corner, I'm going to go into Bling Bling with the original palette and a new brush, and I am going to wet it. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the new palette, going into Bling Bling with the clean brush. Alright guys, so here's the finished look, and I do have some thoughts. So comparing the two palettes, they are quite similar except for a couple shades that stood out to me. One being this Gem shade. It is so much more pigmented in the new release. If you can see here, this is the newer palette and this is the original. It is just different. So I'm going to swatch right here. Here is the original palette, and then I'm going to go into the new one. And you can see even in these swatches on my finger, this is just richer. And then when you swatch them, let me see if I can swatch them for you. The other standout shade for me was Rockstar, as you saw me applying it, which was the second shade that I applied. And this one leans more pink and it just seemed deeper, whereas the original palette seemed more dusty purple, and it wasn't as deep. Overall, I feel like my eyes do look quite similar. The metallics perform the same in each palette, aside from that purple one that I did show you, but in terms of like the lighter metallics that we have in here, they all swatch beautifully, they all apply beautifully. The mattes in both palettes I find a little bit difficult to work with. I feel like this is the toughest palette to get a beautiful seamless blend in terms of the mattes. Even on the repressed, that could be just me. I feel like my look came out okay, but I've struggled the most using the purples. So I do see a difference. I do think that they repressed them. Obviously that purple shade is like bam, and that second shade that I used, you could tell. But I feel like this is not beginner friendly, I want to say, just because it's so deep and I just have a hard time blending them regardless. I think you could see there's a little bit of patchiness, a little bit of choppiness. No matter what I did, it just kind of was there. Again, it could be my skill level, but I didn't notice these problems with the yellow and the brown one, and also the green one. Even the green one being so deep, I felt like I could get a beautiful look every time that I used it. This one I struggled with, even with the reformulated. So as much as I wanted to like die over this, I love the colors, but the mattes are just hard to work with in my opinion, even the repressed. So that's my opinion on this. So I think we've established here with these two videos is that they did repress them. They did change them. There are differences. Even if it's subtle, even if it's a few shades, you can tell that they did that. So I think moving forward, I want to do tutorials with the new palettes and just kind of put it to rest that yes, they did repress these. We've seen that with two palettes now. There are changes. So now I'm going to focus on the new repressed ones because we have established that there is a difference, and I want to do some tutorials with those. So leave it down below which ones you want to see tutorials with going forward. Let me know your thoughts. Which eye looks better? Do they look the same? Which shadows look differently when I was applying it? I want to see what you guys think down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.